And what do you know? We got a couple haters.
These videos are satiric reviews. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it.
This is the tragic tale of talent never realized. The story of what was and what could have been. It's nothing new here, especially considering that we've covered the greatest wrestler you've never heard of, Sean O'Haire. This, however, is the story of Enzo Amore and Big Cass. And in telling this story, we need to first tell the story of Eric Arndt and William Morrissey. The team first met as teenagers, a whole decade before they reunite and re-emerge as a tag team in WWE's Yellow brand sometime in 2013. William was trained by Johnny Rodz and spent a few years in the Indies before being brought into WWE's developmental territory, FCW. In 2011, he got his WWE name of Colin Cassidy. He remained in FCW until it was rebranded to NXT. Eric's entrance into the company was a bit different, and not just from Cassidy's, but from pretty much everyone else's. Arndt entered the company without any prior wrestling experience, though he had been training since the age of 16 at DeFranco's gym, the same gym that Triple H by chance would begin training at himself. Arndt made a video compilation of himself working out and cutting promos, which is carny as fuck. Now somehow he forced Triple H into watching that, either through his own charm or downright blackmail. Exactly which is true, we may never know. Which, by the way, the latter is actually how I get Brian Zane to do collaborations here. Triple H, liking what he saw, gave him a tryout, and before you know it, he was debuting on the NXT brand. The two were reunited after they both suffered losses to bargain brand Batista Mason Ryan, which is a wild piece of trivia.
You're like a kid in dodgeball who gets pegged and stays in the game. I don't like you, and neither does Big Cass.
While their team never had an official name outside of Enzo and Cass, they were subtitled the realest guys in the room. They'd spent 3 years not getting into any noteworthy feuds, but still remaining an entertaining fixture in the company. They managed to get over despite being the sports entertainers in WWE's wrestling brand. The team's attraction had never been their in-ring psychology or their incredible arsenal of moves. It was their characters and how well they knew how to betray them. Their knowledge of each other and clear comfortability working together helped form a chemistry unrivaled by any other tag team around at the time, outside of the New Day. Their time together was filled with memorable promos, quotes, and catchphrases.
Bada boom! Realest guys in a room.
How you doing?
Me and Big Cass had a dime for every time we got beat up as kids. We'd have 0 dimes. SAWFT, soft.
You know, and I want to run down a beach into my own arms. But that's impossible.
Okay, well, he ain't the only one that can play games, and we ain't talking chess.
I never played chess. I don't play chess.
That's why I said we ain't playing chess.
I'm happy for you, and I'm proud of you.
That's what I'm talking. I mean, I was born at night, but not last night. Conceivably, I figured that's what happens. Because we're stars. We take media showers.
Media showers.
They don't.
I'm a teacup chihuahua, but it's not the size of the dog in a fight. It's the fight in a dog. And you're all bark.
No bite. Sometimes I worry about you, Enzo.
What do you mean? Why are you worried about me?
Sometimes I worry.
But why would you worry about me? Sometimes I worry about you.
I'm gonna get some payback. What type of dude threatens somebody in a wheelchair?
I'll tell you what kind of dude. A dude who's SAWFT.
They went for the NXT titles a few times in failed efforts and managed to beat down every team they came across verbally. Whether it was talking smack or making obscure references that only 90s kids would understand.
Flexing like you're Arnold. More like, hey Arnold, you should have never stepped off the stool.
They were absolute showmen in a time when the industry was severely lacking. Not since the New Age Outlaws have I remembered an audience quoting promos word for word as the performers were saying them.
My name is Enzo Amore, and I am a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is Big Cass, and he's 7 foot tall, and you can't teach that.
Eventually they were given the valet of Cassidy's real-life girlfriend, Carmella.
And this right here, this is Carmella, and she's
honestly at the time seemed like a completely unnecessary addition, but turned out to be a great fit for the team. She meshed well with the two and actually managed to add a little bit more to their promos and overall gimmick. It was a no-brainer that the trio, or at least the original team, was headed to the main roster. In 2016, Enzo and Cass were brought up to Raw, while Carmella was drafted to SmackDown. Their first promo in was putting down the Dudley Boys, and honestly, it showed promise.
You two are so ugly. Tears run down the back of your head to avoid your face, they don't. I got the gift of gab and the gift of jab, and I'll put that lazy eye right back to work. You better think twice. It'd be 2 more thoughts than you had all day. Fall back like your hairline.
And for me at least, it seemed like a New Day and Enzo and Cass feud was just inevitable. Like, could you imagine the promos? However, shortly into their run, Enzo was concussed by a ring rope, and Cass for a brief time began to be miscast as a solo star. And even with Y2J trying to put him over, he still couldn't get the kind of fan reaction without the team's other half. Upon Enzo's return, he started eyeballing Rusev's wife, Lana, in a storyline which somehow depicted him as the babyface. The same storyline included him walking around the arena naked at some point in time, so for those of you taking notes at home, nudity and infidelity all took place on a PG-rated program. Around the time of this program, dirt sheets began to report on how much of a hassle Enzo was to be around backstage. During a short stint on the main roster, he managed to make very few friends, but plenty of enemies.
You talk about being the realest guy in the room. You got fake gold, fake Jordans, fake leopard print, fake hair with a fake accent. You pretend to be an Italian when you're actually German. It's like, I guess you are the realest guy in the room because the only thing real about you is being a guy.
Whether it was inviting strippers and potential escorts backstage, or getting kicked off of tour buses, it seemed like the man was constantly making dirt sheet headlines, and it was never for his in-ring prowess. In order to separate and potentially save Big Cass from Enzo's reputation, they made the creative decision to split the team apart. In an angle that replicated the Triple H-Shawn Michaels rivalry from the early 2000s, Enzo was attacked backstage, and eventually it was revealed that Big Cass had been the culprit. Enzo, giving an Oscar-worthy performance, even shed a tear before he ate a big boot.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
What was very strange about this feud is that, as beloved as Cass was, Enzo was clearly the one who was more over with the fans. The two feuded for a bit, with Cass constantly getting the upper hand and Enzo being booked from that point forward to be a jobber with a mic. The rivalry took a bunch of bizarre turns, including the decision to include Big Show and a shark cage. Cass eventually went down with an injury during a Brooklyn street fight match against Enzo,
But he may have hurt his leg.
which Enzo, ever the showman, decided to take to Twitter to mock him over. Cass, working himself into a shoot, took the tweet personal, despite, this being wrestling, and this led to a fallout between the two. Despite Enzo still very much being disliked by officials, and having articles written about his bad backstage behavior, he was sent to 205 Live and given the Cruiserweight title. Now, his Cruiserweight title run was both brilliant and troubled. His ownership of the title was both a good move and a really shitty one. You see, Enzo was in a division of workhorses, who almost all of them could put on better performances in between the ropes than he'd been capable of. However, he wasn't a bland stand-in black shorts type of guy. He stood out like a sore thumb. While a lot of the other members of 205 Live were gifted in the ring, Enzo was gifted on the mic. All the other guys were wrestlers, while Enzo was a character. Now a heel and leading a team of 3 to 5 205 guys looking to make an impact, Enzo was coming into his own, and actually making the public viewing audience give a damn about that title. Sorry, Neville. You're still in my heart. He began wearing his Cruiserweight title with him out to clubs and been filmed by TMZ walking around with it, which may be the dumbest or the smartest thing I've ever heard. Because, on one hand, the title was being seen by major media circuits and given publicity, and Enzo himself began to become a bit of a celebrity outside the WWE blanket for stunts like this. But carrying a title belt around with you from town to town just kind of seems like, I don't know, it just kind of seems like a rib that was played on him without him knowing. And during all this, WWE played up a romantic angle between he and Nia Jax, which honestly looked like it could be a little bit interesting. However, before the storyline could find its conclusion, or, fully unravel, Enzo had been released once it had been made public that sexual assault charges were being pressed against him. Enzo laid low for a while before it was determined that he was an innocent man. Upon returning to the public eye, he adopted the name Real One, which had already been his Twitter handle, so fair enough, and began a new career in rap, which shouldn't be all that surprising as he, and again, I need to stress that I'm providing air quotes here, rapped his old entrance theme, so I guess it makes about as much sense as anything else in his career. His first single being about the incident in Phoenix, and it was very divisive amongst fans. And me personally, I actually kinda really dig this track. I mean, sure, Enzo doesn't have the SAWFT-ist voice in the world, but he's still what I'd like to call ghetto articulate. He's got metaphors on top of metaphors. He has verses you need to listen to 2 or 3 times before you fully comprehend what it is he's trying to say. And not just because of his grainy-ass voice, although I'm sure that probably doesn't help. There's something so, and forgive me for the pun here, raw about this song and his performance.
Fuck you, Marks, I hate it. This for all my fans are waiting. Entertainment's hottest free agent. Bitch, I'm reincarnated.
And while Simon Gotch claims that track solidifies Enzo as a monster,
Enzo made a diss rap about a mentally unstable drug addict. That is not going to help her situation. And a decent human being would see that and go, you know what? I'm going to distance myself from this. That means worst case scenario, he did a diss track on a woman he raped. Best case scenario, he's an awful human being, and worst case scenario, he's a monster.
I kinda call bullshit. Yes, this girl was clearly either drugged up or mentally ill, and that's sad. But how can you not expect someone who is wrongfully accused of something so heinous not to have a response? Not only did he respond, he vented. He didn't send his legion of fans to chase her off the internet. He didn't give out personal information about this girl. Hell, when thinking about it, he didn't even respond to her directly. A lot of people have shit-talked Real One and how he went about making the video and his depiction of wrestling fans. The one group of people who supported him. But honestly, all of this has made me like him more. You get the feeling that he's not trying to pander to any specific audience or try to make himself look good. Just as his name says, he's being real. There's something refreshingly genuine about his response. I mean, he's angry as hell, and honestly, he has every right to be. I don't see his depiction of wrestling fans as anything other than his own perception of marks who claimed him guilty based on the character they saw on TV for years. Obviously, the most important thing to come out of this was consensual penis.
The sky gripping my consensual penis.
But I think a lot of the people who are sharing this meme aren't understanding that it's supposed to sound as outrageous as it does. I mean, listen to the lyrics of the song.
Apocalypse, guilty till you proven innocent. Ass backwards bullshit is it? Ass backwards bullshit is it?
He's talking about how during the Me Too movement, there are people the public are declaring guilty until proven innocent, himself included. When he's saying
consensual penis,
it's almost like he's saying you have to go out of your way to clarify that. And while he's angry that his name was lumped in with Kobe Bryant and Bill Cosby, he's still in support of actual victims. His second track, however,
face everything and rise. I look the devil in the fucking eyes. I seen his evil, I heard his lie. I know what success without no honor. It's an unseasoned dish. It'll satisfy your hunger, but I bet it tastes like shit. As long as mama love me, I don't need no girl to love me. Rose, man, ain't raised on dummy, my own money.
I don't know one person with a pulse and a working brain who gave it praise. And while I do feel that he's being real in these tracks, let me also say that as a person, he seems really fucking annoying. And you know what? I'm about to prove that with one clip. One clip will give you the mentality of this man.
Life and in the DMV. And I always win because I'm the realest champ in a room. And there ain't no way the state of Delaware is going to tell me how to sign my own license. I've been signing this thing just since grade school. Looks like an EA to me, Delaware.
I get it. It's funny because you drew a dick. It's funny because you drew a dick. That's a good one, Enzo. That's how the fuck old are you again? In the meantime, Cass returned to Raw doing his I'm tall gimmick. While there were big plans for the man named Big Cass, he began to find himself in a load of problems backstage. Put in a storyline with the newly returned Daniel Bryan, for some reason, Cass was set to cut a promo in which he beat up a little person, who was dressed as Daniel Bryan. Although, by the height difference, you could have just had him beat up Daniel Bryan. We probably wouldn't have known the difference. He was scheduled to give him one defining big boot. But not understanding that less means more, he went to higher-ups and asked them if he can continue a beatdown after the fact. Getting a definitive no, he decided to instead go over their heads and ask the boss himself, no, not Sasha Banks, Vince McMahon, who also gave him a definitive no. So of course, naturally, he took it upon himself to continue beating the little man down following a big boot. Because when someone says no, just remember, it only counts if that's what you wanted to hear. Now couple this incident with his growing attitude behind the scenes, getting into political screaming matches with Sami Zayn, and also not performing the way the company would like him to perform. And much like his partner Enzo, the company had more than enough reasons to let go of the big guy. And so endeth the run of Enzo and Cass. I think most fans would agree that the two were in their prime when they were in NXT. And even without proper opponents to play off of, they remained the most entertaining part of the show. I mean, sure, they were still entertaining and most importantly marketable on Raw, but they never got the screen time or had the presence that they initially had when they first debuted. Whether it be with Carmelo or just the duo, they were deserving of more, but subjected themselves to less. Despite all their combined talent, despite their connection to the WWE Universe, they still never won the big one. Here's the list. Rene Dupree and Kenzo Suzuki, the Spirit Squad, the Basham Brothers, Deuce and Domino, John Cena and David Otunga all have achieved an accolade that Enzo and Cass have not. They'd all won the tag team titles at some point. Now, despite being a lot more over with the audience than any of the previously listed tag teams, they never won the big one. They never solidified themselves as a tag team. Let's face it, their merchandise sold. I know this because for a while, every wrestling fan I knew owned a Certified G t-shirt. They've now joined the ranks of Crime Time and the Rockers in being one of the most over tag teams to have never gotten the belts. And that's including their NXT days. This team never got the tag team titles anywhere, despite, if not being the most entertaining team in the company, a shoo-in for it. Rumor has it a lot of indie promoters are licking their chops at the opportunity to bring Enzo and Cass back together and put them on one of their shows. But I'd imagine that's a lot easier said than done, as Cass is still holding a grudge, and no one can afford to bring Enzo in and expect to break even. So with that being said, I'm the Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso, and if you like the words that came out of my mouth hole and you too want to become a VTard, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's plenty more where this video came from. Follow me on Twitter because, hell, why not? It's not considered stalking if it's on the internet, am I right? And don't forget to join the Discord. I don't have anything catchy to add to that, but just join it. Just go do it. And if you have a free moment of time and a free dollar to spare, then head over to my Patreon, where for just $1, you too could help keep this boat afloat. And if you don't have that dollar, but you do have a free moment of time, then hit the share button. It will help me out tremendously.
VTards, oh.